The dangerous rebirth. Who the empath becomes after absorbing the narcissist's darkness and surviving. Carl Jung original. You think the narcissist destroyed you, but they made a fatal mistake. They accidentally forged you. Escaping them feels exactly like dying because you aren't just healing, you are violently decomposing. Discover the terrifying, blood-red truth of how your deepest psychological agony becomes your absolute, untouchable power. The brutal reality of escape and the Nigredo stage. You thought the moment the door clicked shut behind you, the nightmare would end. You thought the physical distance would instantly sever the invisible chains, bringing a rush of golden sunlight and sudden, breathless peace. But as you sit alone in this heavy, suffocating silence, the terrifying truth begins to claw at your chest. There is no peace. The monster is no longer in the room, yet you are still bleeding out on the floor. You are physically free, but your mind is still trapped in the dark woods, wide awake, waiting for the invisible predator to strike from the shadows. Why does escaping feel exactly like dying? The inner multiverse welcomes you, brave traveler, to the space where we do not flinch at the dark. If you find fragments of your own soul in this narrative, please subscribe to our channel so we can continue illuminating the unspoken depths of the human psyche together. Do not listen to the hollow chorus of people who have never been hunted by a ghost. They will pat your hand and tell you to simply let it go, to treat this as merely a bad chapter, a toxic relationship that you just need to move on from. They do not understand the profound psychological annihilation you have just survived. What you are stepping into right now is not a random tragedy, nor is it a cosmic mistake. You have been thrust violently into a brutal, unforgiving, yet absolutely necessary psychological crucible. You have not just left a partner, you have been initiated into a sacred, terrifying alchemy of the soul. In the ancient, whispered language of the alchemists, those who sought to transmute heavy lead into pure gold, there is a precise name for the desolate wasteland you currently inhabit. They called it the Nigredo, the blackening, the dark night of the soul. It is the absolute mandatory first phase of the great work. In the terrifying grip of the Nigredo, the raw material of who you used to be must be thrown into the fire. It must be burned, broken down, and reduced to its most primal, unrecognizable state. This is a stage of pure putrefaction, where everything you thought you knew about love, about safety, and most devastatingly, about your own identity, must rot and decompose. This is the unvarnished reason behind your bone-deep exhaustion that no amount of sleep can cure. This is the root of your midnight paranoia, your hypervigilance, the terrifying loss of your own reflection. You stare into the mirror and a shattered stranger looks back. You feel irreparably broken, malfunctioning, destroyed beyond salvage. But listen closely to the voice of the ancient one sitting by the fire. You are not broken. You are decomposing. The fragile, naive ego that allowed you to become prey is dying, and it absolutely must die. The Nigredo is not a punishment from a cruel universe. It is the violent clearing of the ground. The universe is stripping away your illusions, dissolving the shell that kept you small. Surrender to this terrifying blackness. Do not fight the ash. The soil must be devastatingly dark for the new seed to finally crack open, the albedo and the purification of truth. But out of this agonizing decomposition, a microscopic, quiet shift begins to occur in the depths of your ruin. In the alchemical tradition, once the violent fires of the Nigredo have reduced the heavy lead of your past to ash, the intense heat gives way to the second stage, the albedo, the terrifying but necessary whitening. This is the era of purification, and it arrives not with a triumphant roar, but with a sudden, devastating flood. You will find yourself weeping tears that feel inexplicably different from the desperate, pleading cries of your past. These are not the tears of a victim begging for the monster to show mercy or to magically change back into the phantom they initially pretended to be. They are a harsh, stinging solvent. They are washing the invisible fingerprints of the abuser off your soul, flushing the insidious venom of their gaslighting out of your neural pathways. During the albedo, the dense, suffocating fog of cognitive dissonance finally begins to lift. You stop romanticizing the pathetic crumbs of affection they threw at you, and the blinding, clinical light of reality takes over. For the first time, you look back and see the narcissist not as a powerful, omniscient demigod who held your worth in their hands, but as a tragically empty shell, a bottomless void sustained only by the life force you willingly poured into them. This clarity is agonizingly bright. It forces you to witness the depth of your own betrayal to yourself, the firm boundaries you abandoned just to keep a fragile peace, the glaring red flags you painted white to sustain an illusion of love. You are scrubbing your spirit clean on the rough, jagged stones of truth. This washing phase is utterly exhausting, leaving you feeling entirely hollowed out, pristine, like a house swept completely bare. Yet in this echoing emptiness, the trauma bond begins its quiet, permanent unraveling. You are no longer decaying, you are being distilled. The heavy, toxic attachment that kept you tethered to a psychological ghost is evaporating, leaving behind a distilled essence of your spirit, raw, sensitive, but undeniably pure. The hollow spaces inside you are no longer filled with their invasive voice dictating your flaws. Instead, there is a vast, echoing silence. You are reclaiming the sacred architecture of your own mind, the Citrinitas and the dawning of sovereignty. As the blinding clarity of your grief washes the last of their poison from your veins, a strange and unfamiliar warmth begins to flicker in the hollows of your chest. You have crossed the threshold into the Citrinitas, the yellowing, the quiet dawning of the solar light. Up until this exact moment, your entire existence was defined solely by the trauma, either surviving it, desperately escaping it, or painfully purging it from your system. But suddenly, the internal narrative violently shifts. The morning sun breaches the desolate horizon of your mental wasteland. You stop obsessing over the mechanics of their psychological disorder. You stop asking the agonizing, endless question of why they did this to you. And instead, a much more profound, terrifying question takes root. Who are you now? This is the stage of a profound psychological awakening. The very life force that the narcissist desperately tried to siphon from you begins to regenerate, but it returns irrevocably altered, illuminated by the brutal wisdom of your survival. You begin to realize with absolute certainty that your profound empathy, your immense capacity for love, and your radiant energy were never your weaknesses. They were the exact gold the emotional vampire sought to steal, because they possessed absolutely none of their own. In the Citrinitas, you reclaim your intellect and your intuition, merging them into a razor-sharp instrument of discernment. You start to trust the visceral signals of your gut again. The terrifying world outside slowly begins to regain its color. You find yourself smiling at the simple feeling of the sun on your face, laughing at a joke, engaging in a passion you had abandoned years ago just to manage your abuser's fragile, demanding ego. The fragmented pieces of your shattered identity are not simply gluing back together. They are fusing into a much higher, more sophisticated consciousness. You are no longer a victim waiting in the dark for an apology that will never arrive. You realize that you do not need their closure because their very absence is your ultimate closure, and the light of your own awareness is enough to guide you completely out of the labyrinth. The Rubedo and the forging of the Philosopher's Stone. Yet, merely stepping into the warm light of survival is not the final destination of the alchemist. The awakened spirit must now be forged into something utterly unbreakable. Welcome to the Rubedo, the reddening, the fierce, and ultimate stage of the great work. This is the creation of the internal Philosopher's Stone, the absolute transmutation of your psychological agony into unyielding, tangible power. The pure white light of the Albedo and the golden dawn of the Citrinitas are now violently infused with the deep, passionate red of lifeblood, fierce conviction, and absolute boundary. You are no longer merely healing. You have become dangerous in your self-possession. The Rubedo is exactly where you synthesize the pitch-black darkness you survived with the brilliant light you reclaimed. You do not pretend the abuse never happened, nor do you try to hide your scars from the world. Instead, you wear them as the hard-earned armor of a warrior who has traversed hell, looked the demon in the eye, and conquered it. In this stage, your boundaries are no longer fragile picket fences, waiting to be pushed over by the next manipulator. They are towering walls of solid fire. Anyone who approaches you with the familiar, subtle manipulations of the past is instantly repelled by the terrifying, scorching heat of your self-respect. You realize the profound paradox of your journey. The narcissist did not break you, they inadvertently forged you. By pushing you to the absolute limits of human psychological endurance, they forced the activation of a dormant, primal power within you that you would never have discovered in a life of comfort. You have successfully transmuted the suffocating lead of their abuse into the blinding gold of your own unshakable emotional independence. You no longer seek any form of external validation because the Philosopher's Stone is securely locked within your own chest, an endless, self-sustaining source of profound worth, radiant love, and immense fortitude. You are whole, deeply integrated, and finally, truly untouchable. The grand synthesis and the new timeline. Standing upon the precipice of this fierce, blood-red dawn, you finally look back at the wasteland you traversed, and the grand, undeniable design of your suffering reveals itself. The narcissist, in all of their destructive, chaotic cruelty, was never the main character of your story. They were merely the brutal, necessary catalyst required for your ultimate spiritual evolution. Without their suffocating darkness, you would never have been forced to discover the blinding, indestructible light of your own soul. The alchemical process is complete. You have walked barefoot through the putrefaction of the Nigredo, washed your spirit in the stinging tears of the Albedo, awakened to the golden truth of the Citrinitas, and forged your unbreakable sovereignty in the fires of the Rubedo. You are absolutely not the person you were before the abuse began, and you should thank the universe for that reality every single day. That former version of you was beautiful, tender, and kind, but tragically vulnerable to predators in the dark. The person standing here today is a master alchemist, entirely capable of transmuting the deepest, most unspeakable human agony into the highest, most radiant purpose. Keep walking forward into your new timeline, holding the blazing fire of your survival high as a torch for others who are still lost in those dark, terrifying woods. And if you have felt the heavy resonance of your own journey in these words, remember that you are never walking this path alone. Subscribe to the Inner Multiverse, share the story of your own transmutation below, and together, let us continue to turn the heavy lead of human trauma into the absolute undeniable gold of human triumph. And finally, conclusion. The journey through the aftermath of narcissistic abuse is not merely a process of recovery. It is a profound alchemical transmutation of the human soul. You do not just heal from the trauma, you are entirely reborn through it. From the agonizing, pitch-black decay of the Nigredo to the purifying, stinging tears of the Albedo, you meticulously strip away the toxic illusions of the past and face the devastating reality of your abandoned boundaries. As you step into the golden dawn of the Citrinitas, you finally reclaim your stolen life force, realizing that your profound empathy and capacity to love were never weaknesses, but highly coveted treasures. Ultimately, through the fierce, blood-red fires of the Rubedo, you forge your suffering into an unbreakable, sovereign power. The abuser was never the master of your destiny. They were simply the brutal, unwitting catalyst that forced you to discover your own invincibility. This entire ordeal was a painful but incredibly necessary initiation into a much higher state of psychological consciousness. You have successfully turned the heavy, suffocating lead of psychological manipulation into the pure, radiant gold of self-possession. By navigating this labyrinth, you now possess the eternal Philosopher's Stone, an infinite reservoir of self-worth, impenetrable boundaries, and authentic love. You are no longer prey walking in the dark. You are a master alchemist of your own reality, deeply integrated, wildly powerful, and forever untouchable. The profound lesson. Your deepest trauma is the exact raw material required for your greatest empowerment. The narcissist targeted you not because you were inherently weak or broken, but because you possessed a radiant life force and an immense capacity for love that they completely lacked. True healing does not mean attempting to revert to the innocent, vulnerable person you were before the abuse began. Instead, it means evolving into a highly conscious version of yourself, whose boundaries are forged in fire, protecting your empathy rather than abandoning it. Practical application. In your daily life, stop waiting for an apology or seeking external closure from those who have wronged you. Recognize that their absence is your ultimate closure. Begin treating your empathy and your energy As a sacred finite currency, do not spend it freely on emotional vampires or those who refuse to respect your limits. Establish strict, uncompromising boundaries around your time and your emotional peace. When confronted with subtle manipulation or toxic behavior, train yourself to observe it clinically rather than absorbing it emotionally. Anchor yourself in the self-sustaining worth you have built, relying on your own intuition rather than the validation of others. Join the conversation. We would love to hear from you. What is one firm, unbreakable boundary you have established in your life to protect your inner peace after experiencing a toxic dynamic? Please kindly share your thoughts and experiences in the comments section below. Your insights might be the exact spark of inspiration someone else needs to read today, as we all learn from each other's journeys. If this message resonated with you and you want to continue exploring the depths of psychological healing and personal power, please hit the subscribe button. Your support deeply encourages us and provides the motivation to keep creating more meaningful, empowering content for this community.